You probably think choosing a partner is one of the most personal decisions you'll ever make. You meet someone, you talk, you notice the little things, their smile, their voice, the way they make you feel. Weeks become months, sometimes years, and eventually you decide whether this person is someone you want to build a life with. It feels like an entirely modern experience. But for more than 95% of human history, there were no cities, no dating, no weddings, no rings, no last names, no homes to invite someone back to. And yet every single person alive today exists because at some point in the last 300,000 years, two prehistoric humans chose each other. Or perhaps they didn't. In 2019, geneticists studying ancient human DNA reached an unexpected conclusion. The farther they looked into our past, the less human relationships resembled the stories we tell ourselves today. Some prehistoric couples stayed together for years. Others probably didn't. Some communities may have encouraged lifelong partnerships. Others appear to have exchanged mates between neighboring bands, creating social networks that stretched across hundreds of kilometers. The deeper archaeologists dig, the stranger human love begins to look. And by the end of this video, you may never see attraction, relationships, or even your own instincts in quite the same way again. If you wanted to choose a partner today, you could potentially meet thousands of people. A dating app might show you 500 profiles before dinner. A city like London or Tokyo surrounds you with millions of strangers. Choice has become almost limitless, but around 40,000 years ago, your world was unimaginably small. Anthropologists estimate that most hunter-gatherer bands contained only about 20 to 50 people, not families. Everyone, children, adults, elders, hunters, mothers. That was your entire community. If another group wasn't nearby, every person you would ever know might fit inside a single school bus. Immediately, a problem appears. You couldn't simply marry whoever was available, because many of them were your relatives. Modern genetics tells us that repeated mating between close relatives dramatically increases the chance of harmful genetic mutations. Prehistoric humans obviously didn't understand DNA, but remarkably, they behaved as if they did. One of the clearest examples comes from Sungir, a remarkable Upper Paleolithic burial site discovered near Vladimir, Russia, dating to around 34,000 years ago. Researchers sequenced DNA from several individuals buried together with thousands of ivory beads and elaborate ornaments. At first glance, they looked like a family, buried together, living together, dying together. But when genetic analysis was published in 2017, the results surprised everyone. The individuals weren't close biological relatives, not siblings, not parents, not children. Despite living in the same small community, they had somehow avoided reproducing within their immediate family. That isn't what random chance predicts, it's what deliberate behavior predicts. Somehow, long before written language, long before biology, long before genetics, humans had already developed social rules that reduced inbreeding. Nobody knows exactly how. Perhaps they recognized familiar childhood companions. Perhaps elders remembered family connections over generations. Or perhaps neighboring groups regularly exchanged young adults. Whatever the explanation, it worked astonishingly well. And Sungir isn't the only place where archaeologists have found this pattern. Evidence from Ice Age Europe increasingly suggests that prehistoric people weren't isolated families wandering alone across empty landscapes. They were connected, sometimes across enormous distances. One clue came from something surprisingly ordinary. Stone. Around 27,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers living in what is now Central Europe made tools from flint that originated more than 150 kilometers away. In other regions, seashells traveled over 500 kilometers inland. Nobody walks those distances simply to collect decorative shells. Those objects moved because people moved, or because groups met each other, shared food, exchanged tools, built alliances, and perhaps found partners. For decades, archaeologists believe prehistoric bands rarely interacted. Today, the evidence points in almost the opposite direction. Instead of isolated survival, many hunter-gatherers seem to have maintained surprisingly large social networks. Networks that may have existed for one critical reason, to make sure the next generation wasn't born from the same tiny group. But genetics wasn't the only thing shaping prehistoric relationships, because once humans began leaving their own communities, something entirely new became possible, and that's where the story becomes even more unexpected. Around 300,000 years ago, the first Homo sapiens were living in Africa in small, mobile groups. For most of the year, those groups may have traveled separately, following animals, seasonal plants, and fresh water, but archaeological evidence suggests they didn't remain isolated forever. At certain times, they came together. Not by accident, by tradition. One of the best clues comes from the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa, where anthropologists spent decades studying the hoansi, one of the world's best documented hunter-gatherer societies. While they are modern people, not living fossils, their way of life preserves social patterns that may resemble those of prehistoric humans. Researchers like Richard Lee observed that individual bands often consisted of only 25 to 40 people. Yet those bands were connected to hundreds of others through visits, gift exchanges, and seasonal gatherings. A person could recognize faces from communities they hadn't seen in years. Children grew up meeting people far beyond their own camp. Young adults found potential partners there. Those gatherings weren't just social events, they were a survival strategy. Because choosing a partner wasn't simply about attraction, it was about keeping an entire network alive. And the farther archaeologists looked into the past, the more they found signs of those invisible connections. In 2021, genetic studies of Ice Age Europeans revealed that populations separated by hundreds of kilometers were still exchanging genes over thousands of years. That means people weren't trapped inside tiny family groups. They traveled, they met strangers, and sometimes they stayed. But choosing someone from another group came with a different challenge: trust. Imagine seeing another band on the horizon. You don't know their intentions. They could become allies, or they could become your greatest threat. Every meeting carried enormous risk, yet prehistoric humans continued meeting strangers anyway. Why? Because the benefits were too important to ignore. A new hunting partner, fresh knowledge about the landscape, different stonemaking techniques, and perhaps, most importantly, someone who wasn't related to you. Relationships became bridges between entire communities. A couple didn't just connect two people, they connected two worlds. But even if prehistoric humans had opportunities to meet new people, how did they actually choose? What made one person more desirable than another? For decades, scientists assumed the answer was simple: strength. The strongest hunter wins. The biggest muscles survive. The most intimidating male gets the mate. It sounds logical. It also turns out to be incomplete. In the late 1970s, anthropologist Richard Lee noticed something unusual while studying the best hunters weren't always the most respected men. In fact, if a hunter returned with an enormous animal and acted proud, the rest of the group often mocked him. His achievement was deliberately downplayed. This custom became known as insulting the meat. At first, it sounded cruel, but Lee realized it served an important purpose. Overconfidence threatens cooperation. A hunter who believes he is more important than everyone else becomes unpredictable. An unpredictable person is dangerous in a society where everyone depends on everyone else. Humility wasn't just admired, it increased the chances that the group would survive. And if survival depended on cooperation, then choosing a partner may have depended on it too. Someone who shared food, someone who stayed calm during conflict, someone willing to care for children who weren't biologically their own. Those traits don't leave fossils, but they leave patterns. Among modern hunter-gatherers, food sharing is remarkably consistent. Anthropologists Kim Hill and A. Magdalena Hurtado, studying the Ake people of Paraguay, documented that successful hunters often distributed meat across many households instead of keeping it for themselves. At first glance, that seems irrational. Why work so hard only to give the reward away? But over months and years, sharing built something more valuable than a single meal: reputation. Everyone remembered who shared during difficult seasons. Everyone remembered who helped injured people. Everyone remembered who could be trusted. Long before social media, long before written records, your reputation lived inside other people's memories. And in a small group of only a few dozen individuals, memory was everything. If someone consistently lied, people noticed. If someone abandoned others during danger, people remembered. If someone was generous, that memory spread. Choosing a partner wasn't based on one impressive moment. It was based on hundreds of ordinary ones. Then another discovery complicated the story even further. In 1989, evolutionary anthropologist Sarah Hrdy proposed an idea that challenged one of the oldest assumptions about human families. Human children are unusually dependent. Compared with chimpanzees, a human baby takes years longer to become independent. One mother cannot easily provide everything alone, while also gathering food, traveling long distances, and protecting herself. Hrdy argued that our species evolved through cooperative breeding, not just mothers, not just fathers, grandparents, older siblings, aunts, uncles, even unrelated adults. Everyone helped. Supportive partners weren't simply attractive. They dramatically increase a child's chance of surviving. This may explain why humans evolved something surprisingly rare among mammals: long-term pair bonds, not necessarily lifelong, not always exclusive, but often lasting long enough to raise children together. Because unlike a newborn deer, which can stand within an hour, a human child may depend on adults for more than a decade. Choosing a partner wasn't only about the next few months, it shaped the next generation. But if cooperation helped explain why humans stayed together, it still didn't answer one of the biggest mysteries of all. What did prehistoric humans actually find attractive in the first place? And the answer may have been hidden in your own face all along. If you ask people what makes someone attractive today, you'll hear hundreds of different answers: confidence, kindness, humor, height, a certain smile, a particular voice. Culture shapes many of those preferences. But beneath those differences, researchers have found something much older, something that seems to appear across continents, languages, and thousands of years of human history. Not because humans agreed on it, because evolution quietly favored it. In the early 1990s, evolutionary psychologist David Buss published one of the largest cross-cultural studies ever conducted on human mate preferences. His team surveyed more than 10,000 people across 37 cultures, spanning 6 continents. Despite enormous cultural differences, several patterns appeared again and again. Both men and women consistently valued intelligence. Both valued kindness, both valued dependability, physical appearance mattered, but it wasn't the whole story. For women, a partner's willingness to invest time and resources consistently ranked highly. For men, signs of health and fertility were often given greater importance. The exact rankings varied from place to place, but the remarkable part wasn't the differences, it was how much overlap existed. These weren't modern inventions. They reflected challenges humans had faced for hundreds of thousands of years. A dependable partner could mean surviving a harsh winter. A healthy partner increased the chances of healthy children. A cooperative partner strengthened the entire group. Attraction wasn't random, it evolved alongside survival. Some of those signals are still written into your body. Take your face. Researchers have found that people across many cultures tend to rate facial symmetry as more attractive. No one consciously measures symmetry. Your brain notices it automatically. Symmetry isn't a guarantee of health, but during human evolution, it may have acted as a rough indicator that a person developed without major illness or injury. Your ancestors weren't calculating percentages. Their brains were making rapid judgments shaped over thousands of generations. The same may be true for movement. Studies have shown that people can make surprisingly consistent impressions of others simply by watching them walk. Confidence, energy, physical condition, all communicated without a single word. Long before language became sophisticated, your body may have been speaking for you, but appearance could only reveal so much. Eventually, actions mattered more, because prehistoric life had a way of exposing people exactly as they were. A drought didn't care how charming you sounded. A failed hunt didn't reward confidence alone. A freezing night revealed who shared the fire. A dangerous journey revealed who stayed behind to help. In a world where everyone depended on one another, reputation wasn't built through speeches. It was built through survival. Archaeologists see hints of that cooperation in places where no words survive. One of the most famous examples comes from Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq. Among the Neanderthal skeletons discovered, there was an individual known as Shanidar I, who lived roughly 45,000 years ago. His injuries were extraordinary. His right arm had been severely damaged. He had suffered multiple fractures. One eye was likely blind. His hearing was impaired, yet he survived for years after those injuries occurred. That shouldn't have been possible alone. Someone brought him food. Someone protected him. Someone accepted that caring for another person was worth the cost. For decades, Shanidar I has stood as one of the strongest pieces of evidence that compassion didn't begin with civilization. It may not even have begun with our own species, if prehistoric communities cared for injured members who could no longer hunt. Imagine how valuable a reliable partner would have been, someone who remained when life became difficult, someone who didn't disappear after the first setback. Those qualities don't fossilize, but their consequences do. Because every generation that survived passed those social instincts forward. Eventually, they reached you. It's easy to imagine prehistoric relationships as simple: a strong hunter, a healthy partner, children, the end. But the evidence paints a different picture. It suggests that choosing a partner may have involved memory, trust, cooperation, reputation, family alliances, and relationships stretching across distant groups. It involved avoiding close relatives long before anyone understood genetics. It involved raising children who required more care than almost any other mammal. It involved building friendships that could last for decades. In many ways, it required the same things relationships require today, just under far harsher conditions. That may be the strangest discovery of all. For all the technology surrounding your relationships, the messages, the photographs, the dating apps, the algorithms, the uncertainty you sometimes feel when deciding whether someone can truly be trusted isn't new. It's an ancient calculation performed by a brain shaped over 300,000 years of human evolution. Every glance, every conversation, every instinct to notice generosity, reliability, or kindness. Every hesitation before placing your future in someone else's hands. Those feelings weren't invented by modern society. They echo decisions once made beside campfires, on open grasslands, and along migration routes where the wrong choice could change an entire family's future. You may never know exactly how your prehistoric ancestors chose one another. No written record survives. No conversation was ever preserved. But the fact that you are here at all means that somehow, across thousands of generations, they chose well enough for you to exist. And every time you wonder whether someone is the right person for you, you're asking a question your ancestors have been trying to answer for hundreds of thousands of years.